Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the CrossWinds Church More Than Sunday podcast. Glad you're joining us today. Today, our guest is our former student ministry pastor, Ed Burton, who now lives outside of Chicago, is a pastor there. And I thought we'd catch up with him, hear a little bit about what life is like there in their COVID-19 situation. And then we actually start to talk a little bit about what this might mean for the church in the future. Enjoy this. All right, everybody, we are here with Ed Burton, who is our former student ministry pastor. Now he's a pastor outside of Chicago. And Ed, welcome back to CrossWinds, Ed.
Well, thanks for the welcome. Glad to be back.
How are you, man? How you hanging there in this whole coronavirus COVID-19 thing?
My hands have never been cleaner, Chris. I'm washing them out all the time. My face is not being touched at all. That
is the hardest part of this, is the not touching your face.
And I am a face toucher, Chris. Not others, just my own. And yeah, I mean, for me, we're just doing all we can to, flatten the curve and everything you've heard, all the catchphrases. We're doing our very best to contribute. We're ordering online with our groceries. We're everything you can imagine. We're trying it.
Are you getting a lot of Lou Malnati's pizza delivered? Are you near Lou Malnati's?
I am less than a block from one.
Oh my gosh.
If I didn't have bad shoulders, I could hit it with a baseball. So yeah.
Ed, you are that close to a Lou Malnati's pizza?
Yeah, very much so.
Out. How far are you from like a good Italian beef place?
There's I don't know. We're pretty close. I mean, Chicago's not too far away. So if I really wanted some, that's more your jam. I'm not against them or anything, but yeah, there's a Portillo's nearby. So
a good Chicago style hot dog too. I mean,
yeah. Oh, Little Louie's right next to Lou Malnati's. Literally the next door to Lou Malnati's is this amazing dog spot that I go to all the time. It's
called Little Louie's.
Yep. You can Google it. Little Louie's in Northbrook. Yeah.
There is a place in Palatine where I grew up called Hot Dog Richie's, and I grew up going to Hot Dog Richie's. And by the way, this is boring everyone who could care less to hear about Chicago. But there was Hot Dog Richie's, and I found out on Facebook. I've not been on Facebook in a few years. By the way, sorry everyone if you're messaging me on Facebook, because I don't check. I'm never on it. But I a few years ago I found out Hot Dog Richie's closed down, and I was so sad, Ed.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. So there's all these little Chicago style hot dog and Italian beef places. Little Louie's sounds like another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's good, man.
Outstanding. Yeah, man.
I wanted to call you and have us do this because I thought it would be interesting for us to just catch up with you and hear what you've been up to these days. But also, it might be interesting for us to hear a little bit about what this looks like in Chicago, Illinois right now, or in Northbrook. And then just hear how another church is managing through this as well. So before we get into all the COVID stuff and what that looks like for your church, what's been going on with you, man? Tell us a little bit about you and Courtney and Kira and Landon. What's life been looking like these days?
Well, I still wake up every day wondering how I am now a father of a 7th grader and a 5th grader. They're so big, they're tall, and they're large. It's I look across, it's unbelievable. But yeah, they're doing okay. I think e-learning right now for them has been a departure from obviously their normal school, but they're loving school. They love where they're at. Upon the Burtons moving back from the West Coast to Chicago, we ended up settling in Northbrook, which is a north suburb of Chicago, and it's beautiful. We love it in a lot of ways. It reminds us of some of the Bay Area when it comes to the schools and some of the just the culture. We've got some really fun places to go hang out. Although there are no hills, everything is completely flat, and so it's not as beautiful, but it is nice. So we
California people. You may know Northbrook from your John Hughes movies.
Yes,
Northbrook is like where pretty much every John Hughes movie that I can think of was filmed, right?
I can walk out my front door and look down the street. The water tower I see is the Save Ferris water tower. Like,
no way.
It's the one. Like, if you look up there, it's the one from the movie. The Northbrook. Yeah, Glenbrook North High School is the high school where they filmed Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So I literally am living blocks from the 80s movie paradise.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up probably about half an hour from there in the northwest suburbs. You're like more northern suburbs.
Yeah.
And it feels very much the same way. Well, you lived in the northwest suburbs as well.
Yep.
And I felt like I was growing up in a John Hughes movie, even being 30 minutes away. That's what the whole northwest side of Chicago feels like. Northbrook Court.
Yeah.
Is that still there, that mall?
It is. And it's half of it just got smacked off and just kind of got cut in half because they're keeping half of it as an indoor mall, but the other half's turning into like an outdoor kind of mall. So they're rehabbing the whole thing.
I'm trying to think, was Weird Science a John Hughes movie?
I don't know. Is
that when they filmed the mall scene where they dumped the Slurpees on people's heads?
Your movie expertise is showing to be greater than my own right now. I am not sure.
I don't know.
But I'll tell you this one little soundbite. Also, the movie Mean Girls, not John Hughes, also filmed and basically based on this area. You can watch it. It's like it's unbelievable. It's North Shore High School. That movie also set in this location.
Okay, sorry. So again, boring people who have no interest. How are you guys? Tell us a little bit about your role at the church you're at right now.
Yeah, I get to be the youth and family minister at this church, so I'm really excited to have that opportunity to work with moms and dads as much as I can. My goal upon getting the role was to develop a team, and so we did over the first 3 or 4 months. Raised up a bunch of adult volunteers to serve in our 4 main wings. There's a confirmation group for 8th graders. There is a middle school group, and there's a high school group, and then there's Sunday mornings that we do our youth program. And so those are the 4 main kind of weekly things we do for the most part, and just raising up leaders, developing them. That's one big half of what I do. The other half is I do trimesters or so. Every 4 months or so, I do a huge parent roundtable where we get all the moms and dads together and we have a good time. We break off into smaller roundtable groups and we learn together, we share together. The longer I've been in youth and family ministry, really since 2004, it's crazy to say that out loud, but the more I can spend time with moms and dads and help them know how supported they are and how much they can have an influence on their kids. Like my main role is to do both, is to help with kids and be with them personally, lead those leaders and be with the students, and then also just to support and resource moms and dads and to start as early as possible. So I get to do that. Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool. I mean, that's significant. I know you've had a vision for that kind of ministry for a long time, that it's more than ministry just to students or kids, but it's to families as a whole and helping them minister to their own kids. So that's great, man. Sounds like you're in a perfect spot.
We're loving it. I'm grateful. It's always hindsight when you look back and you watch how God puts the pieces together. But Courtney's loving her job. She's working at a nonprofit in Hoffman Estates called Fellowship Housing. That is a fantastic organization, and she's doing such a good job. She loves that work, and so right now she is able to work remotely. I'm able to work remotely. Also, we live across the street from the church. I could look up so we're all like, me working remotely is a little like, I mean, I'm basically there, but it's so we're grateful. We love our jobs. We love where our kids are at, and it's been really good.
So tell us about what the COVID-19 thing has looked like there in Chicagoland. I mean, are you, I know we're probably going on 4 Sundays now without services. And I think our shelter in place orders came the Monday or Tuesday after we missed our first Sunday because we couldn't do mass gatherings. Did mass gatherings get canceled first? What did that look like there?
So we ended up just a little bit. I think California was ahead of the curve, and as you guys often are, kind of. So
I don't know if this is a good curve to be ahead on.
Right. Well, at least ahead of the number of places that shut down and got safer quicker. Yeah. For us, Pritzker and a lot of Illinois governors were quick to respond as well, or other governors in other states. We haven't had services for this is the 4th Sunday.
Okay.
And so we are doing a live broadcast. We have permission to be in our church very minimally. So since it's across the street from me, the local government said you can have pastors there and one other person. So we're just stripping it down to the smallest, and we're doing a live broadcast.
How did you find that? You know, I'll tell you, for us, it was complicated to figure out if we could still show up at our building to do a live broadcast? Like, did you know right away the minute they told you guys what could and couldn't happen? Were you able to know right away whether you could still show up in the church building and do a broadcast?
I don't know. I just was kind of waiting and ready for when the pastor said, "Hey, we got the word." So I was preparing and things ready for the live feeds and making sure we were going to send the signal where it needed to go. But it was.
And is that one of the roles you've taken on now, is helping make sure that happens?
Well, Chris, yeah. See, I am a card carrying, nerd tech file kind of person, and so
I love that about you. I think it's one of your most endearing qualities.
Oh well, yeah. That's nice. But for me, I'm grateful to have the ability to shore up some of our media and tech stuff so that we could hopefully thrive and make a good impact in this time of completely online ministry, which is, no one planned this. So I am shifting some of my time into that category. Like all week, every night of this week, we're doing a live broadcast for Holy Week. We are doing something every night starting at 7:30 p.m. here, and it's about 25 minutes, some prayer,
cool
music. And so, so we're just trying to, so for ministry, we are using Zoom a ton. Like I'm sure a lot of you are. Our youth ministry is using Zoom. Our small groups are using Zoom. We're using a fun app that's a companion to Zoom and other things called Snap Camera, where you can make yourself look differently, and it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a fun little addition to Zoom if you want to use.
That's neat.
Snap Camera, I suggest it. Also using a mobile app called House Party, up to 8 people, and you can actually use it's a phone thing, and you can play games with people through it. It's kind of it's like FaceTime, but if you had games to play together. It's like if you took Jackbox games and FaceTime and smash them together. That's House Party.
House Party. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna actually try that. So can you put that on your TV? Like, can you have it? No.
But we are doing Zoom Jackbox games where last night we had a double date with some friends of ours where I pulled out the computer. We played games together. So we're all that to say, we're having a good time as best we can remotely, often using Zoom, and then whatever extras we can fit into it. Small groups are still happening. Anyway, yeah.
That's great, man. That's good. That's really good. Now, I feel like I was checking in on you a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned that you guys are you broadcasting on cable there as well, on cable TV? Do you have something with Xfinity?
Yeah, we're on Comcast. It's always a week late. So everything we do on Sunday, the following Sunday is when it shows up on Comcast. So we got a local hour-long, segment we show every week. And it's television. It's a little like most of us are cord cutters, right? So also I will say in our congregation, there are a larger population of elderly folks. So it is important for us to make sure we're connecting and serving everybody in our church. And our church does a great job of serving them as well as younger families. So I think it's wonderful.
And how great that you're on TV, so that it's very easy for them to be able to tune in. I think I initially reached out to you because we had started this Geek Squad, which I know is trademarked by Best Buy, but hopefully they don't go after a sponsor. But we had decided to go give everybody like Roku sticks, anybody who needed them, and install them on their TVs. How much easier that you're on Comcast and you can just say tune into channel 31 or whatever, and that's great, man.
Yeah, it's great. There's no login required if you have a TV remote. You just no passwords or anything. You just turn to channel 35. Yeah.
So I'd be curious to ask you. I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, but that tends to be my MO with these podcasts. I think of things as we're talking and feel like we should talk.
Great.
What's your take? You probably have a more interesting take on this than anyone I know. What would be your take on what this is going to mean for the future of church, having been digital for this period of time, and who knows how much longer? Do you guys have any idea in mind when you'll go back?
When we'll go back to having regular services?
Yeah.
Man, I wish I could. I don't know. I think that there's this weird perception based on some of our leaders in our country that a switch is going to go off and we're just going to go back to the way it was. And I can't imagine that being the case. When we get back to how we're used to things being, I imagine it's going to be quite a while.
Yeah. Because even if the shelter in place is lifted, I would still think mass gatherings are probably somewhat restricted for a while, right? Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think besides the impact of? So I guess where I'm going is it's not going to just be 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Let's say we do 3 to 4 months of service this way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We know that there's some detrimental things to that in terms of not being able to do some things together we're used to doing together. Do you see any good coming out of that?
Absolutely. I think that right now, the value of presence is, just heightened in so many ways. And I think that we're learning how to have presence with people when you actually can't physically be with people, and how much that matters to, I don't know about you, but if you've tried to call or text or reach out to family members or old friends, I'm finding lots of phones getting picked up. I'm finding lots of responses. People, our ability, which has gone often untapped for so long, is we could be connected to people. It's not the same as sitting next to them and seeing them, but I've talked with family much more than I'm used to. I've reached out to older friends. There are ways to connect, and I think our presence with others will just be much more celebrated and won't be taken for granted. And I think, so that's my first thought. But
yeah. I think it's a good thought. The fact of the matter is, it's easy to get a hold of people right now. We know where they are.
Yeah.
Look, you and I were supposed to do this podcast at a different time, and I was able to go, hey, can we do it an hour earlier? And maybe you could, maybe you couldn't, but I knew you'd probably still be home an hour earlier. So that's true. What else? What other things do you think might come out of this that would be valuable for ministry?
Well, I think that, and this is not a. So I love sermons. I preach sermons. I think sermons are great. I think this will be not the nail in the coffin, but it will usher in a decentralizing of the sermon being the main portion of a church experience.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. That's good.
Yeah. And again, I love amazing teaching, and I still listen to my favorites in my podcasts, but I think that stories, I think narrative, I think what God is doing. How are we sharing about what God's been up to in our own lives, where we've seen him at work? How are we actually sharing in one another's stories and seeing how our story intertwines with God's will more be the central, I think, portion of church. It'll be less like, oh, I got to show up this week to make sure I hear that one thing I really got to hear. And we're going to go, no, maybe more than we're called to intellectual deepness, we're called to relational depth. We're not called to simply have a really powerful brain punch theologically every week. Again, I love sermons. I want to learn stuff. But how well do we know our neighbors, and are we learning how to be more present with them, more able to love them, more able to relate with and be with them?
Yeah, that's good, man. I'll tell you one thing we've noticed. We're seeing more people show up more consistently to their small group over Zoom or Google Hangouts, Google Meet now, I guess. I think they changed their name this week. I'm watching more people show up consistently to that than before. And I was talking with Andrea about this, and I think what we've come to realize is we love small group, but sometimes small group, if it's 90 minutes together, there's 45 minutes before of getting ready and driving there. And then there's wrapping up and picking up your kids and going back home. And that 90 minutes can sometimes turn into like a 3-hour experience.
Yep.
And in this, what we're finding is you can have a 1 hour group or hour and a half and actually have it be an hour or an hour and a half.
Yeah. And I'd say that this is going to be a slight departure from but here, stick with me. I've experienced this in some really weird ways for many, many years when it comes to playing with my friends and hanging out with my friends. And I often do that online, playing video games, right? Yeah, and so I don't have to drive to my friend's house. I don't have to, I can just throw this headset on that I'm using right now and join into something with somebody, play for a while, talk for a while, connect, and then I'm done. And so I, again, I'd much rather go out, go to the city, do something, but I got 2 kids and my life is such that I don't have the luxury to go hang out with my friends in person more than maybe once a quarter. Right. And, because, that's just the life we're living now. And so, yeah,
absolutely. It's a great point. You think about the fact that you can connect with anyone, anywhere around the world. In fact, I look at, if this had happened 20 years ago, it would have been a very different experience. I think we're able to, for the most part, as I talk with people, stay positive and hopeful through it, partly because we're still able to connect with each other through this in ways that we might not have been able to a long time ago.
Yeah. I completely agree. Technology is helping us to stay connected in ways never before. I mean, we've got that Johns Hopkins Corona map that's helping us stay in tune. There's a lot of resources we've got, and I'm praying and hoping that all these combined efforts to get ahead of this thing are going to pay off, and that this technology that connects us socially will sustain us to the degree it can.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I have one last question, and you kind of alluded to this before. What do you think that this does with the church when it comes to action in their communities, in their neighborhoods? I would think something like this. You cannot go back to church as usual. I like to think that our church was more than church as usual, and that it was more than Sunday services and small groups. I think there's been a lot of really good things we do beyond these walls. But if you were not convinced of that before, you've got to be convinced now. What are your thoughts on that?
All right. So rephrase the question in a shorter way. I feel like I lost it a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I started to answer my own question. What do you think that this looks like when it comes to churches starting to serve their communities?
I think that we need to know our neighbors better. I think that's going to cause us to feel less like our serving is an event we have to go do. Like serving used to be. And people think of serving, they think that's a thing on my calendar I planned to go do on a day, right? Where I think that serving, maybe the church will be more interested in creating servants rather than serving opportunities. So I think it'll change our scope of when we look at where God has us now. He's got you there for a reason with a purpose, and maybe it's discovering why you're already there. You don't have to reinvent some new way to serve. And right now it's just in our face more. We can maybe see and hear these needs from people that are just in our proximity much more than ever before. I think that we're not going to stop having serving opportunities to some degree, but I think it'll move us towards being more present and being servants, that not just serving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. A fascinating thing for me. I don't think I've said this out loud to anybody yet. So you and whoever's listened, the 5 people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah, all 5 of them. Yeah. And one of them is my mom. Yeah.
We'll be the first to hear this, but so we're on 35 acres, and we've got a 1,000 seat auditorium. And as I look at the fact that it will not get used for 3 to 4 months, that auditorium, it's got to get you asking the question, oh boy, as we look to the future and what we build and how we use what God's given us, is the plan to build things that may have to sit dormant. I mean, they already often sit dormant 6 days a week, waiting for the next Sunday. Now we use ours more than that, but for most of us, even when we say more than that, we're talking about an additional night a week or 2. Man, it just makes you wonder and know, wait, the church is not the building, it's not the campus, it's the people. And here we are putting all this effort into trying to stay connected as people. Yeah. And maybe that tells us a little bit more about what we're supposed to be when this is over.
Well, it reminds me of how anytime in my life as a leader or as a believer, I hear some brand new idea that goes, wow, what a ministry thought. It always turns out to be something that everyone's known for a super long time. Read Acts 2, it's this was this revolutionary idea that I heard at a conference is the most age-old wisdom that we should have already been aware of, right? And so it's just reminding us of what's really true and reminding us of maybe what God's heart is when it comes to his priorities. And we get our priorities all mucked up in the midst of it. Bigger, better, flashier, more current, more, I kind of almost dislike the word relevant now. It's getting, but anyway, but I think loving people well and meeting together regularly, a lot of what you see in the early church, I mean, there's no reason we can't do that right now, except for the part of actually being with people.
Yeah, right. That is a little bit of a weird nuance all of a sudden. That's true. Yeah. Well, good, Ed. Hey, man, thank you for your time, and thanks for spending it with us and catching up, man. It's good to hear from you. We miss you guys. We love you guys.
We miss you. We miss you guys and love you too. Love to all the CrossWinds families, and we miss you guys. Hope to talk again before too long, and stay safe, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Take care, man.
All right, see ya.